today we are starting a new vlogging project, which I've already started, but I was looking at the footage and I realized that I didn't do a good job of explaining the concept of this video. So I'm midstream of doing it, but I'm redoing the beginning just so that it's clear what the project of this is. So I very rarely, it's hard for me to bring myself to do a true try a chapter challenge because I have this feeling of like, well, sometimes you just don't know in a chapter, and often people are just doing it to find something to read. They're not necessarily DNFing the books that they don't pick. But I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could try to do a try a chapter challenge modified, where basically I'm going to do an initial try a chapter of my book of the month club books that I've let stockpiled up. I feel like everybody who's a book of the month club person at some point, unless it's like an active, like, ooh, I can't wait to read this one, you start letting them stockpile and then it gets to be a problem. So this is me trying to like really get serious with myself and say, do I want to read this for any of the ones that I don't have like a specific reading plan for? So there's 12 of them. So I'm going to do a try a chapter challenge where I'm first going to read the first chapter, and if the first chapter does not captivate me, I'm going to DNF it and say, I don't like this enough to keep reading. I've got to stop stockpiling this. So I'm going to do that. And then from there, I'm going to read until I'm bored or until I'm not sufficiently engaged to continue. So we'll see how this goes. I know at least in part how it goes, but I'm still in the middle of it. It's an interesting, let's just put it this way. I'm interested so far to see my feelings about this. So anyway, that's the concept. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm basically doing a try a chapter followed by reading until I'm no longer engaged. So with that, let me throw you back to the original intro and we'll talk about what books I'm gonna read for this challenge. Let's just go through, maybe we'll start with the ones that I think I'm least likely to like, and then we'll go from there. I don't know. Okay, so two that I held on to because they intrigued me and I wanted to see what the hype on them was like. One was True Biz by Sarah Novick, which I believe is about a school for deaf students. And it seemed like it possibly could have a mystery component to it, even though it was more lit fic. So I was intrigued by this. And then A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. I have seen vastly opposing opinions on this one. So I think these two are the most likely for me to not enjoy. This because it's just possibly out of my comfort zone or kind of things I typically read. And this just because it seems like opinions are very divided. So who knows where I'll fall. Let's maybe do nonfiction picks next. So Bittersweet is from the author of Introverted, which I know was a big hit a few years ago. So I was intrigued by that, and even just the subtitle, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole, I felt like was kind of intriguing. Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford I wasn't initially interested in, but I saw such good hype about this that I decided to hold on to it. So it's a memoir that has gotten very good reviews. Similarly with good reviews is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Haven't loved his fiction stuff, but I'm hoping I might do better with his nonfiction. And then My Body by Emily Rajowski. This I think I may use as a part of a commentary video at some point. So I want to see if I end up actually wanting to finish this memoir because it's about a supermodel's experience of sort of commentary on her body. Okay, and then we have a couple of romances. So we've got The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai, which I believe is a fake dating trope, which is one of my favorites. I'm a sucker for a fake dating trope. And actually, so is this. Or wait. I think this is more of a marriage of convenience now that I'm thinking about it. And this is a fake dating trope, which is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. So I'm a sucker for that. So when I saw that be buzzwords in the descriptions, I was like, yes, please. And then, oh, this is breaking down nicely. Okay, two mystery thriller, The Collective by Allison Galen. This intrigued me because I think it's like a revenge story, which I'm always into. And then Like a Sister by Kelly Garrett. Not as much my trope, but there was something about the description of this one of her doing like an investigation to find out who killed her sister that kind of appealed to me. Don't know why, but it did. So I held on to it. So we'll see what I think about it. And then last but not least, two SFF picks. The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker is a fantasy that's sort of like an assassination Reaper of Souls situation, if I'm remembering rightly. And I think the heroine is biracial, so she starts in London and then goes to Japan. I don't know, this sounded like it could be kind of fun. And then Upgrade, I'm trying to figure out if I like Blake Crouch. I was so on Recursion, and I want to see what I think about this. So anyway, that is the TBR. We'll read one chapter and I'm gonna be ruthless. If I'm not interested, I'm gonna DNF it. Because a lot of these are just sort of like, oh, theoretically that sounds good. No more theory, let's find out what I actually think about them. Okay, so freshly out of the shower, hair is plopped, and I just finished trying the last of the books. So I'm here to give my initial thoughts. Also enjoy Marple giving herself a little bath in the background, and Hastings is hanging out here with me. Okay, we have some surprising findings, guys. God, where to even start? Okay, so I think we actually have more that I'm DNFing than what I'm gonna keep going with, which surprised me. Ooh, I just gave myself a paper cut. Oh. So I think I've got 1, 2, 3. Oh no. Oh, actually, you know what? It's exactly half and half. Well, that's convenient. Okay, I thought I had 7 and 5. So we're doing okay, right, bud? He's such a sweet boy. He just wants pets. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. He's a little scared of the tripod, but don't worry. That won't stop him from rubbing his little face all over it here in a minute. Okay, anyway, sorry. I'm distracted by the paper cut and the cats. Like, it's a lot right now. Actually, let me put a Band-Aid on this so that I don't get my duvet bloody. Uno momento, por favor. Okay, we're back. We're bandaged. Let's do this. So, 2 that I'm not that surprised I'm not going to continue with are True Biz by Sarah Novick and A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This one because my suspicions that this was not going to be a book for me. I think I've got enough data to say, yeah, like this seems like it's going to be contemporary and that whatever mysteriousness there is not like the main driver. So for that reason, I just don't think that this is like my thing at this point. So if it was my thing, it seemed like a pretty good version of it from what I read. I liked the writing and the characters, etc. That was fine. A History of Wild Places, I had to read a lot of this because it didn't have like a conventional chapter 1. It had like a part 1 that was 39 pages. And while there's like stuff happening, it's being told in the most boring way. And that doesn't bode well. Like that's always something that's a red flag to me of like, if I was gonna sit here and tell you like what happened in those 39 pages, you'd be like, but Mara, that sounds pretty interesting. And it should be, but it's not. So I'm not sticking around for more on that. Then Bittersweet. I'm kind of surprised that this is not what I'm gonna finish. I think when I read the introduction, I got the feeling I get from nonfiction where I'm like, I don't need to read a whole book of this. I got whatever I really want from this introduction. Did not entice me to continue. I just didn't find it very compelling. There was something about her like framing of things that was a little off-putting to me. Like, I don't know. She gives you like this little test of like, are you somebody who's gonna care about bittersweet about this topic or this subject matter? I just felt like it was pretty generic. Like one of the questions was, do you react intensely to music, art, or nature? Music, art, or nature. I'm not gonna say that's everyone, but I'm gonna say that a majority of people have a strong, like can have an intense reaction to one of those 3 things. Do you find comfort or inspiration in a rainy day? Do you prefer poetry to sports? Or maybe you find the poetry in sports? It's like, have the courage of your convictions, Susan. If you're trying to exclude sports people, just do it. I don't know. That was kind of what sealed the deal for me of like, I don't think that this is a book for me. So this one surprised me. The Dating Plan. This is one of the ones that I picked because I thought it sounded interesting. The writing was terrible for me. It was so, I could tell she was trying to be like quirky and fun, but for me it was just really overwritten. So it starts with like she finds her ex and her former boss in flagrante delicto, and just the description of them like pawing at each other. I don't know. There was something about the writing in this one that it just didn't work for me. So that one's a no. This one is hilarious. Okay, I'm actually not technically DNFing my body because when I opened this to read it, I saw like this title page and I was like, oh, maybe there's like a book within a book or something. Maybe that's what she's doing. And I started reading and I was like, no, this is like a legitimate piece of fiction. The title page is We Are the Brennans. And then I went and I was like, wait, is that what this book is? And I realized that the full title page is also We Are the Brennans. And it's 2021 by Tracy Lang. So wrong cover on this book. I'm not interested in We Are the Brennans. So for that reason, I'm DNFing it. And then finally, another surprise, because I think I picked this one as like top 3 most interested. The Collective by Allison Galen. I started reading it and it felt like it was going to be a missing child thing more than a revenge thing. There was something about the tone of the writing that wasn't totally clicking with me. I was surprised, but I was like, do I really want to keep reading this? And the answer was no. So I have 6 books therefore that I am not continuing on with. And then of the ones that I have left, the other 6, these guys, there's, of the remaining 6, there's only 3 that I'm like fully convinced I'm gonna finish. 2 of which I expected, 1 of which I did not. So I'm definitely, this was my favorite of what I read so far. Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. I thought the writing was super nice, the voice was compelling, and what happened was interesting. This memoir for sure. Like a Sister, I would say was my second favorite, and I would have not guessed that. I wouldn't say that sort of like a dead family member investigation kind of thing is typically what I do with thriller, but there was something about it at the time that appealed to me. And having read the first chapter, I would say that this is very intriguing and like the one I'm most excited fiction-wise to keep going with. And then John Green, I think I am going to keep reading this to solve the mystery of, do I like his writing? I've always assumed that what I read from him previously, I just didn't like it because of the type of fiction it was. I'm not convinced by the intro that his writing is for me, but we're gonna find that out together, and I think I'm gonna finish this one unless I just totally bomb out on it. Okay, and then the 3 that I'm kind of on the bubble with, we'll see how much further I get in them. First of all, Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. I think the premise is really cool. So like, I liked the world building in the first chapter. It's reading very YA though, and if it keeps reading that way, I might DNF it. Then Upgrade by Blake Crouch. A lot happens. Most of it's pretty interesting, and I'm interested enough in where the first chapter left off that I want to see if I can get on with it. I will say that getting into this, I'm reminded of a Ted Chiang story I read that has a very similar premise, and Ted Chiang is just like one of the best writers in sci-fi period today. So it's kind of hard to measure up to that. So we'll see. I'm like on the fence. We'll see if I keep going. If it continues to be interesting, I'll keep reading it. If I stop being interested, I'm just gonna stop reading. And then The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, because I really like the writing of this. I'm not totally sold on the characters or plot though, so I want to give it some more time to breathe. I would like to get the other point of view because I'm assuming that there'll be a dual point of view. If there's not, that may mean that I also stop reading. But I'm gonna keep going in this one for now. So I would say of these 3, the one that I think I'm most likely to finish, I'm gonna guess is the Blake Crouch, but I don't know. And I will say, interestingly, of all 12 of these, really there's only 2 that I'm genuinely excited to continue with, and that is Someone's Daughter and Like a Sister. Sister-daughter, here we go. Apparently that's the theme. Yeah, so unexpected results of this first try a chapter round. So we did the try a chapter round. Next is the read until I'm bored round, and I will let you know if any of them fail that particular test. And yeah, I'm gonna go take my hair down and get my day going. Okay, we're checking in. Enjoy the Christmas ambiance here. So I actually was gonna wait until January to get started on things, but you know, I was kind of snowed in-ish. So no, maybe not snowed in, I was iced in because it got uber cold over the Christmas break. So I do have updates on 2 books. So this one I did finish, and I would give between a 2.5 and a 3. Probably should have DNF'd it, but I just realized that it's a HarperCollins imprint. I will tell you, I'm learning more and more about what imprints are owned by HarperCollins through this entire strike situation. So if the strike is not over, I can't tell you my full thoughts. If the strike is over, I'll insert them here. Full thoughts are, I think that the world and like what happens in this is pretty cool, which is why I kept reading. But the character development and sort of like execution, I think was not great. It helped me when I realized that this was YA. This is just like super dark YA. So if you're into that idea, it's probably worth trying. I think I should have DNF'd it though, because it was just fine. It was like somewhere between a little underwhelming and fine. And life is so short to finish books like that. So I don't know. 2.5 stars, 3 stars, somewhere in there. Upgrade by Blake Crouch, I DNF'd. If we're following the rule of reading, like stopping reading when I'm not engaged or bored, I was not engaged and bored by like the 60, 70 page mark. And normally I would read a little bit more. So it's like, oh, maybe it'll get better. But like that's part of this concept, is to just stop. So I'm just gonna stop, and I think my conclusion honestly is that Blake Crouch I just don't think is a writer for me, which is kind of a bummer because like I really like the idea, and I often like the execution of sci-fi or speculative thrillers or speculative mysteries. I just think the way he does his just doesn't really appeal to me, which is okay, if disappointing. So I DNF'd this one, 2.5, 3 stars-ish. So yeah, the rest of these I will actually read in January. See you in 2023. I finished another one. Did not DNF it, so check mark there. It held my attention the entire time. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. It's kind of hard for me to figure out how to rate or review this one because, to be honest, I don't find this at all memorable or interesting. But I do think that the writing itself is actually quite nice. So like the prose is a cut above. So like if I'm talking about just this as a book in terms of my enjoyment, it was fine. Like it delivered, actually, you know what? That seals it for me. Okay, it delivered what I expected it to deliver for a fake dating trope. I wish that we had alternating POVs. We do not. It's just in our heroine's POV. But it's a good fake dating trope. She is his bodyguard while he's going home, and she has recently lost her mother. He is going home because his mother is getting treatment for breast cancer. He has, insert tragic past, even though he's an actor, to make him a relatable human just like the rest of us. She just was broken up with by her real POS boyfriend, who also works at the agency she works at, and they're kind of competing over getting this job. So all of that is pretty standard fare for a contemporary romance doing a fake dating trope. She is pretending to be his girlfriend so that people don't know she is his bodyguard while he's home. Pretty standard fare. I think the writing itself, though, is a cut above. So if I define a B+ as meets expectations with moments of being exceptional, I do think the writing is exceptional. So that makes me feel firmer and stronger in my 3.5 rating. I think the reason I hesitate to give it a 3.5 is just because this is not memorable to me at all. Like, I don't think I will remember this in a year. But I think that it did what I wanted it to do. It was a nice palate cleanser. It was a well-written palate cleanser. And I do think that I now have a rec for people who don't really like romance that much, but really like Emily Henry's books, because they deliver those tropes with a really competent writing style behind it that is not, it doesn't read genre romance as much as some other genre romances do. If that is what you like about Emily Henry's books is, it's a romance, but it doesn't read, but the prose style isn't typical of genre romance, then I think that this book at least, and maybe Catherine Center in general, could be something to check out. So I am glad that I finished this because I think that this gives me a read-alike to give to people. Yeah, I mean, it did what I wanted it to do with momentary flashes of exceptional elements. So not memorable, but a 3.5, and I'm glad I finished it. Okay, I tried. I really wanted to finish this one, but I just keep not being able to get into it. I'm not sure if it's the writing, which is fine, but just I'm not vibing with. So basically this is like sort of these disparate essays contemplating the state of humanity on this planet vis-a-vis, I think where it's going is like climate change, progression of technology. It was written during lockdown, so like thinking about the pandemic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. I just am not vibing with it. And if the entire point of this project is for me to stop reading things when I'm not vibing with it, I think I've gone past that point. So, I don't know. Normally I would push through on this, but in the spirit of this experiment, I'm not going to. So I'm going to DNF this, and I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with this book, but it just wasn't for me. And yeah, I don't know. I guess am I glad I held on to this? Yeah, because I'm surprised that I didn't vibe with it. I'm surprised. I would have expected this one to be one of the big hits out of this project. So a bummer, but onwards and upwards. And see, This is why I do projects like this, because I almost unhauled this book when I got it. This was back when I was doing Book of the Month sponsorships and they would send us all of them every month. I almost unhauled this because at the time it wasn't on my radar, there hadn't been buzz for it yet, and because I had waited a little while to go to the used bookstore, I'd started to see some early buzz on it and thought, okay, I'll hold on to this, maybe I'll get to it. I'm so glad that I did, guys. This was so good. Like, oh man, it's quite short, so there's, I don't know, I'm struggling with how much to tell you. This is basically a memoir about reckoning with two parents who have failed you in very different ways, and how Ashley's life and kind of things that happen to her and things she does, how that influences the way that her parents' failings reflect back on her life. This is a very understated memoir in the sense of it's not a lot of her processing the things that go on. It's a lot of her very artfully laying out what has gone on in her life and what her parents do and what her grandma, I loved her grandma, what her grandma does and like her family dynamics. It's a lot of her just very beautifully describing it and allowing the reader to make some inferences or to make some connections for themselves. Like I said, it's quite short, so I think if she had done some of that kind of like on-page connection, it would have been beefier. But it's a really minimalist memoir in a lot of ways, in a way that I thought was really effective because she's such a good writer. I think someone who is a less skilled writer, this would not have been as good, but she is really talented, and this is very moving. I don't know, I think this could be a great book club pick because there's a lot to discuss in it. And I love this. This is one of the best memoirs of the year for me. I mean, granted, it's early in the year still, but I think that this will be one of the best memoirs I read this year. So I'm going to give this 4.5. And I would not have, well, I don't know that I would never have gotten to this, but maybe I might have just unhauled this after a while. And I'm really glad I didn't, because I thought that this was absolutely great. And I'm done. Yay. Woohoo. I'm so tired. Okay, Like a Sister was really good. This, I feel like between this and Somebody's Daughter, we'll talk about it in the wrap up. Let's just say that this book is one of the ones that made this whole project worth doing, because I could have seen a world where I was like, I didn't even pick this one out. They sent it to me and it just sounded kind of good, but whatever, I'm just gonna unhaul it. I'm so glad I didn't, because I thought that the writing in this was so good. Now, it's not my favorite trope combo. It reads kind of like domestic suspense-ish, but not full on. I think the fact that, so our main character, her sister dies. Was she murdered? The fact that her sister was a reality star, that her dad is like a big producer in the music industry, I think adds like a layer of intrigue. And just, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of really complicated family dynamics in here that were genuinely interesting. It wasn't just centered around somebody cheating on someone, which is my biggest complaint in domestic suspense, is it's like, oh my gosh, guys, pick something else. And Kelly Garrett did. And like I said, I think the actual prose in this was just really excellent. So I'm gonna give this like 4 stars. This is, like I said, not usually my kind of book, but so well done that I really got swept up in it and really enjoyed it. So yeah, an exciting surprise. So, we're done reading the books. I'll give you some final thoughts when I'm slightly less tired. Okay, friends, let's wrap this vlog up. So, I had 12 books on my original TBR, of which I DNF'd half of them after the first-ish chapter. Still working on my discipline of actually being able to do that after one chapter. And do I regret DNFing any of them? I should say that I've also unhauled them, so they are well and truly gone. No, I don't. I feel really good about the decision to DNF all of them. I don't have any second thoughts about it now that I'm looking at the list. The only one, I guess, if I was gonna say I regret that I didn't get to actually try My Body by Emily Rajkowski, but other than that, I feel like that was a good decision. So in terms of experiment-wise, it's been about a month since I did that, and I have no regrets. So that's, I think, good. Then I kept reading 6 of those books, and from that list, I uninterested enough, I guess maybe is the way to say that, to DNF 2 more. Of those 2, I am sad that I didn't click with the Anthropocene Reviewed, I really am, but I also don't want to keep reading it, so I guess I don't regret it. It just bums me out. I am glad, though, that I tried it, because it's one that I really did think that I was gonna like, and so I'm glad that I gave it a try. Upgrade by Blake Crouch, I'm not that surprised I didn't like it, and I you know what, I am glad I kept reading it, because this was sort of my test to see if I'm a Blake Crouch kind of girly, and I'm just not. Like, that's the reality. I finished Recursion and thought it was just very mid, and that's why I stopped reading Upgrade. It was not engaging enough for me to keep going. So I have felt very blah about 2 different books from that author, so I think I feel good about now not seeking his books out. So I am still glad that I attempted to read both of those, so no regrets there. And then I actually finished 4 of the books that I started. So that is 1/3 of the books I put on the TBR I finished. I would say of these 4, I do regret continuing to read The Keeper of Night to some degree, because it ended up not being that great, but it did have it had some qualities about it that kept me engaged. So I guess I don't regret it. It did end up not being that great for me, but I'm really glad that I got to and finish The Bodyguard, Like a Sister, and Somebody's Daughter. I think particularly Somebody's Daughter and Like a Sister, I would not have picked up if they hadn't happened to have been in the cohort that Book of the Month sent me. So I'm glad that I had them, and I'm glad that I held on to them to finish them. So I think those 2 in particular were the winners of this experiment. So what am I taking from this? What I like about Book of the Month is that it often encourages me to try a popular book that I might not try otherwise. What I often end up doing is that on months where I'm buying a book because it's on my anticipated releases, or I want to get a hardback copy of an arc that I've already read, which is the #1 way I use it, I do also like the ability to go in and add an add-on for a popular book that has started to get buzz that I now am interested in reading. So I like that. I think that it is a good way to kind of try things. Leanna, for example, I think is a good example of somebody who uses Book of the Month to really push herself outside her comfort zone. I think this is teaching me that I want to be better about not hoarding these books, but I also think that 2 books that I really, really liked out of 12 is actually not a bad hit rate. So yeah, I think overall, this was a pretty good experimental outcome for me. I think I learned more about my Book of the Month taste, and I think I learned that if I'm going to buy them, I need to be better about not letting them build up. So that's kind of my takeaway. Anyway, I'm happy that I now have gotten 12 books that have been lingering on my TBR off, so that's good. And let me know what you thought of any of the books. How many of you are really mad at me that I DNF'd the Anthropocene Review? I know some of you are going to be really sad about that. I'm sad about it too, if that means anything. So let me know that in the comments below, any of your thoughts. And yeah, I think that will do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, along with non-Book of the Month Club links to the books I talked about. I realized I pulled these and never showed them to you, so I felt like I wanted to show them to you to justify the fact that I went and dug them up. Anyway, that'll do it for me. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!